we are hearing now that Wagner has seized military facilities in a second city that's closer to Moscow. How much do we know about the evolving situation in Voronezh?
Well, it's the whole night, Jeff, as you know, and this morning has been extraordinary and very, very fast moving. Now, Voronezh is about 500 kilometers from Moscow. It's about 5 or 6 hours drive. So, this is a major development that not only is Prigozhin holding Rostov, which, Jeff, of course, is the center of the Russian military operation in Ukraine, but now he has got so close to the capital itself. And we're hearing that there are clashes taking place north of Voronezh between the Wagner forces and forces of the Russian National Guard, the Rosgarbia. So, they've already made extraordinary progress in the sense of territory, not just taking over Rostov, which they now seem to own, including the airport, but now halfway to Moscow.
So, yeah, as you say, Voronezh is closer to Moscow. So I'm guessing if it's 10 miles, if it's north of there, then that is closer to the capital. We have spoken a lot over the last hour about the reaction in the Kremlin. What have we had any sense of what the Ukrainian reaction has been to this so far?
Well, it's cautious because, they've still got a long way to go. Now, the ideal scenario for them, the people I spoke to last night and this morning point out, is that if what's happening inside Russia has a huge morale-shattering effect on the Russian troops inside Ukraine. Now, if there is a collapse, and that's not impossible, if there's a collapse of Russian forces, if they simply desert or don't want to die and don't fight all that hard, then it will be a major advantage for Ukraine. Apart from that, of course, we now have Russian forces fighting each other, which basically means that they're not fighting the Ukrainians. So that equation itself is obviously very helpful for the Ukrainians.
Yeah, because there had been talk this time of year about various counter-offensives. But I guess, is it a case that Zelensky and the Ukrainian forces are going to sort of lay back and just, in the same, similar to a lot of people around the world with a watching brief, or does that conflict carry on unabated, even in light of what's unfolding?
Well, Jeff, I would have thought that it all depends, how quickly the Ukrainians can adapt, how fleet they're on their feet, because they're obviously following a certain set pattern in the counteroffensive, which I think we all know is going to take a long time. Now, if it is the case that because of what's going on in Russia, they feel there's a breach to be made, especially in the east, near Bakhmut, where Prigozhin's forces have already withdrawn from, if they feel there's vulnerability there and they can attack there, then they can use what they haven't really done so far, which are the heavy brigades with Western tanks, the German Leopards, and the British Challengers.
I mean, we get a sense with Prigozhin that the things he said in public about the motivations for what is happening is to do with internal disputes within the Russian fighting force in Ukraine. Is there any sense that isn't what he really wants, and there is a broader goal here that he's not currently acknowledging?
Well, Jeff, probably we have been writing about Prigozhin, for a long time now. I remember first writing about him when I was covering the war in the Donbass, 2014-15, and then also when I went to Libya when his troops were there. What's different is that until now he had been, or rather until the Ukraine war, he had been very low key. He didn't want any publicity. But since the Ukraine war began, since his forces started arriving in numbers in Bakhmut, in eastern Donbass, he cannot stay away from publicity. And a lot of stuff he had said had turned out to be bombast. A lot of threats he made, he had not carried out. But here, he appears to have crossed the Rubicon. He is now occupying Russian cities. And if you, Jeff, look at his reaction to what President Putin said this morning, it's the first open challenge that he has made to the Russian president, which is unprecedented among people of his ilk. Now, whether he can carry out his pledge to march on Moscow, we'll have to see. 25,000 troops. So, he
Mm.
hasn't got that many to take on the whole Russian army, and he certainly hasn't got the enough aviation or firepower. But this is still, a case of
Yeah.
huge fracture in the Russian security establishment.